In this chaotic world, the gray zones appeared 10 years ago. This phenomenon occurs randomly throughout the world. The gray zones harbor countless monsters that are carrying out a one-sided offensive against humanity. It is nothing short of a complete massacre. Even humanity's most powerful and advanced weapons, of which it was most proud, have completely lost their effectiveness. Those who remain inside the dungeons of the gray zones for too long gradually turn to stone and eventually die. Furthermore, if they are not eliminated quickly, the gray zones will continue expanding until they eventually cover the entire world. It was at that moment that the chosen ones, known as professionals, appeared. Among them are archers, swordsmen, mages. They all possess power far beyond that of ordinary humans. Only professionals can defeat the monsters inside the gray zones. These people strengthen themselves by exploring dungeons to resist the invasions. In the present day, the city is in chaos. 3 professionals are fighting with all their strength because if they do not defeat the gray wolf quickly, the zone will expand. The warrior standing on the front line is struck by a powerful laser, and the other 2 take advantage of the opening to combine their powers and land a direct hit on the monster. They feel relieved because they have finally managed to defeat a level 2 wolf, and they are pleased to have used the warrior as bait. The 2 begin walking away, wondering whether the man is dead, although they do not care because he is nothing more than cannon fodder. The warrior, on the verge of passing out, feels intense pain until he regains consciousness without understanding what is happening. He gets up and finds everything strange because he had been working late and has no idea how he fell asleep and woke up in that place. Only then does the MC look at a puddle on the ground and realize that the face and body reflected there are not his. At that moment, a severe headache strikes him, and several memories that do not belong to him flood his mind, including information about the monsters, the gray zones, and everything else. He finally understands that he has transmigrated to another world and become a professional, but his disappointment is obvious because he ended up in a body that had just been treated as cannon fodder in its very first dungeon. He realizes that people who transmigrate usually acquire special abilities, but he was unlucky enough to become cannon fodder, specialized in close combat. At that moment, something catches his attention. A system appears, congratulating him for activating the free selection reward system. He can now freely choose any reward obtained from a dungeon. He thinks about what this means and concludes that rewards are normally distributed randomly, and he has never heard of a system like this before. After understanding it a little better, he becomes happy because it means he has a 100% chance of obtaining the best items. That way, he will become stronger than anyone else, and at least his situation has improved somewhat. He decides to run a test because he has just completed a dungeon, and he chooses a rare grade weapon with a drop rate of 0.01%, along with a piece of fine armor. A notification congratulates him for obtaining the wolf-slaying blade and the wolf leather armor. The blade is rare grade and possesses a penetration effect. When attacking a level 5 or lower wolf, it has an 80% chance of activating an instant kill effect. The armor is excellent grade and increases the armor attribute by 10 points. He is pleased with what he has just obtained because he managed to acquire something that many people would fail to obtain even after 100 attempts. Therefore, he will always be able to obtain the best equipment as he completes more missions. Jifan leaves the dungeon and thinks about how dangerous the world is, and that, in order to survive, he must continue fighting as a professional. He will be able to rely on the reward system to become even stronger. He notices a bus stop and realizes that even though the world is filled with monsters and gray fog, it is not so different from his original world. After boarding the bus, he becomes lost in thought because he first wants to return home and gather information about this world before making any plans. As the bus follows its route, gray fog begins approaching, and the driver shouts for everyone to be careful because they have entered a fog zone. Everyone panics because this means they will be devoured by monsters, and they cannot believe how unlucky they are. The MC realizes that ordinary people have no chance of surviving on their own, so he shouts for them to remain calm and stay seated. The fog continues thickening around the bus until he notices something, and the vehicle is sliced in half by a laser as if it were nothing. Now, without transportation, the people scream that everything is over because only a professional can fight the monsters. To make matters worse, professionals are rare, and it is impossible for one to appear. Jifan once again asks everyone to calm down and explains that he is a professional capable of fighting monsters. The driver becomes happy upon hearing this and celebrates because they are close to the department's second division, so everyone only needs to wait until the team arrives. He then asks Jifan what level his profession is. Jifan replies that he is currently a level 1 warrior. The man immediately becomes disappointed and comments that the warrior class is already useless, and being only level 1 makes it even worse. Everyone becomes desperate because the monster that appeared is level 2, while a level 1 warrior is only slightly stronger than an ordinary person. The MC had already expected this reaction because warriors stand at the bottom of the social pyramid in this world. He enters combat mode and equips the items he obtained. In front of him stands a level 2 rhinoceros. He draws his new sword because, despite being level 1, he possesses equipment stronger than anything from that level. He then charges forward because his strength is equivalent to that of a level 3 professional. His first attack collides with the monster's tough hide. He then leaps into the air and shouts that he may have the most common class of all, but with his reward system and his own effort, he will be able to become much stronger. The rhinoceros opens its enormous mouth, but the MC unleashes such a powerful attack that he cuts the monster apart as if it were nothing. The people are filled with hope after witnessing a level 2 monster being killed with a single attack. Although the MC is pleased with his victory, he finds it unfortunate that no equipment dropped this time. Since his job is finished, he simply says goodbye and leaves on foot. A few minutes later, professionals seal off the area, and after analyzing the situation, the expert comments that even though the monster was level 2, defeating it with a single move means the young man is valuable and deserves to be recruited. With that in mind, she asks which professional defeated the monster because she wants to speak with him. The driver replies that the boy has already left and that he was a level 1 warrior. She finds it absurd that a warrior could defeat a higher level monster unless he possessed some secret item capable of increasing his level. Elsewhere, the MC arrives at his house and notices that the place is covered in graffiti ordering him to pay his debts. 2 men appear, saying that he has finally returned and that they even thought he had fled to avoid paying what he owed. The MC can already guess who they are because, according to his memories, the previous owner of that body had accumulated an enormous debt. He wanted to use the money to purchase a decent profession, but he failed. The previous owner of the body spent the money, but now the MC will be the one who has to repay the debt. Jifan says that, according to the contract, there are still 3 days until the deadline. However, the guy grabs him by the shirt and tells him to forget about those 3 days, because he is certain that he would not be able to pay even in 30 days, since the debt is 5 million. In any case, he leaves and makes it clear that he will return in 3 days with more people to collect the debt, and if Jifan does not pay, he will take his house. The MC has no idea where he will get 5 million in 3 days. Inside the house, his phone is filled with notifications. One person offers 500,000 for an archer weapon, while another is asking for help with a mission and says that the payment is highly negotiable. These messages make him realize that dungeon rewards can be sold for money, so he will use the reward system to obtain rare weapons and earn enough money to pay off the debt. Now, he feels more confident because he cannot allow a small debt to prevent him from becoming stronger. According to the memories of the original owner of that body, this world does not only have gray zone dungeons, but also normal dungeons where professionals can improve their strength. He decides that he will first enter a normal dungeon to level up and, as a bonus, obtain new equipment. He notices some people selling equipment for around 500,000 each, and from what he can tell, a level 1 dungeon can only drop rare grade equipment at best, while the most expensive long-range weapon costs approximately 600,000. His concern grows when he learns that he can only enter 1 dungeon per day, and that 3 days will not be enough to gather 5 million. On the other hand, he sees no reason to be upset, since good equipment chosen through his own rewards will give him enough strength to instantly defeat even a level 2 monster. Therefore, challenging a level 3 dungeon or higher is not impossible. He puts away his phone and lies down for a while, determined to challenge a higher level dungeon the next day, so he can quickly pay off his debt. The next day, he goes out to check the situation of those dungeons. In the central area of the human settlement, Several professionals are clearing away the gray mist, so it is a relatively safe region. This also means that the farther away from the city center a dungeon is, the more dangerous it becomes. However, the rewards will also be much more generous. Jifan notices the entrance to the level 2 Lone Bear Cave dungeon, and some professionals recognize him because he was the cannon fodder who should have died the previous day. They tell him that they need a tank to clear that new dungeon. The MC replies that he is not interested because he wants to try his luck in a level 3 dungeon. Deep down, he knows that he cannot make the same mistake again by teaming up with trash who are willing to sacrifice him. The guy laughs, saying that if he were lucky, he would not have obtained the warrior class. Because of that, he suggests that Jifan find a restaurant where he can wash dishes, otherwise he will not survive. The girl also mocks him because the MC nearly died in a level 1 dungeon and is now thinking about challenging a level 3 dungeon. He admits that the life of the former owner of that body was truly miserable because of how unlucky he was. But now, with the reward system, luck will always be on his side. The guy provokes him again, believing that he has a large debt and is therefore risking everything in a high-level dungeon. The MC becomes increasingly irritated and replies that, compared to the money he owes, the life that guy owes him will be much harder to repay. They fall silent, wondering what he meant by that, and as they watch the MC leave, they begin to wonder whether he somehow knows about what happened the previous day, when they deliberately made him wear down the boss until he nearly died. In any case, Jifan heads toward another level 3 dungeon. The system immediately detects that he is attempting to challenge a dungeon above his level and asks whether he truly wishes to enter. He knows he has no other choice and crosses the portal without thinking twice. Once inside, a notification informs him that the objective is to eliminate all the bandits attacking Qingping Village. Several of those bandits are already watching him. Jifan stretches a little and finds it amusing because the dungeon is different from the one he saw in the real world. According to the memories of the former owner, these dungeons have different worldviews and corresponding stories. As long as the professionals complete the tasks according to the plot's instructions, they can pass the dungeon and receive rewards. At that moment, more people enter the dungeon, saying that since it is level 3, they believe no one there is a beginner. One of them asks everyone to show their information and respective levels. The other 4 introduce themselves as level 3 professionals, consisting of 2 snipers, 1 healer, and 1 assassin. Jifan realizes that although they were randomly matched, the team is well balanced, with him filling the role of warrior. The professionals cannot believe that they are seeing a level 1 person and ask whether he is trying to die at such a young age. The girl becomes the angriest because she does not care if someone is trying to kill himself, but she does not want him to drag the rest of the team down with him, especially since the group's only tank is a useless level 1. The MC explains that although his level is low, he makes up for it with some decent equipment. Yukihashi is surprised and asks whether he is some kind of heir, because that set of equipment is worth hundreds of thousands, and gives him the necessary qualifications to enter a level 3 dungeon. Jifan finds that amusing because if he were some kind of heir, he would never risk his life in a dungeon 2 levels above his own. The team leader explains how everything will work, starting with the assassin scouting the area. During the battle, the tank must draw the enemy fire toward himself. He then reassures the MC by saying that the healer will focus on him. Jifan removes the man's hand from his shoulder and makes it clear that although he is a warrior, he does not like throwing himself into the middle of a crowd of enemies. He says this because he knows that the whole thing is a joke, since the former owner of the body died in exactly that way, serving as cannon fodder. He will not repeat the same mistake, because everyone only has 1 life. Aratani does not like this, because that is clearly the role of a warrior, and he thinks it is absurd to expect the snipers to take the front line. Jifan replies that charging forward without thinking is not bravery, but rather acting like cannon fodder, and that he will only enter combat when necessary. Yukihashi says that if he is not willing to take responsibility, then everyone will fight their own battles, and if he gets injured, he will not receive any healing from the healer. The MC replies that this is perfect, especially because he is aware that he would not receive any healing anyway. At that moment, someone appears in the village. It is an NPC from the village, warning them that the bandits are already near the outskirts of the settlement. The countdown begins as the bandits draw closer and closer until they finally enter the village. The MC imagines that dealing with bandits using short-range weapons should be easy for shooters who attack from a distance. But he does not believe that a level 3 dungeon will be so simple. Indeed, it is not, because the bandits can both dodge the shots and block the bullets. He finds their reaction speed absurd because it is comparable to that of low-level monsters from the Gray Zone. The professionals shout that they will change their strategy, and this time the shots hit, because there is no way to dodge so many attacks at once. Jifan notices that although the bandits' reactions are fast, their defense is quite low. One of the bandits stealthily approaches from behind and attacks the healer, catching her off guard. At that moment, Jifan appears, blocks the sword, and sends the bandit flying backward. The man feels his sword trembling from the impact it received, and begins to panic until Jifan splits it in half. The shooter admits that he is even more surprised by the power of a rare piece of equipment since it allows someone at level 1 to kill monsters easily. However, Jifan is now completely surrounded, but he is not intimidated because he knows he can kill them with a single strike. Within seconds, a bullet grazes past his face, and he is startled, even though the targets were 2 bandits who were approaching. He assumes the team is attacking the bandits, but from the angle where he is standing, he himself is within range of their attacks. Yukihashi laughs, and they resume firing non-stop at all the bandits, while some bullets are blocked by the armor, reducing the damage. Jifan becomes furious because if it were not for the excellent armor he is wearing, he would already be dead, and disposable characters such as warriors do not die only at the hands of monsters, but also at the hands of their own teammates. He tries to block the attacks and demands to know what they are doing. Aratani replies that the MC is probably working with the bandits because he is blocking their attacks. He finally loses his temper and makes it clear that he will make them experience the consequences of treating him like cannon fodder. He begins walking toward the group, but at that moment, an explosion occurs in the village, and an extremely powerful bandit appears before them. The dungeon mission is updated, and now they must defeat the fortress boss to receive the completion rewards. This bandit is ridiculously more powerful than the others, and the entire team panics, asking everyone to attack in a coordinated manner because they are completely screwed. The bullets have no effect on the boss and only make him even angrier, which, incidentally, draws Jifan's attention. The monster stomps on the ground and leaps toward the group, first completely crushing Aratani and tearing off the leader's arm. The monster now stands before everyone, and the leader simply has no idea what to do against such a gigantic being. Because of this, he runs away like a madman, crying for help, and as he passes beside Jifan, he asks him to tank the boss so that he can assist with DPS and obtain the rewards. The MC expected nothing less, since professionals only remember the usefulness of a warrior when there is profit to be gained. He runs toward the one-eyed man, saying that he will save him, and even after attacking the giant, he realizes that a rare rarity weapon cannot even damage a dungeon boss, making him wonder whether there is a special mechanic required to defeat it. The shooter appears and asks him to lure it away, but before he can respond, the boss appears and slams his fist into the ground where the 2 of them were standing, leaving Yukihashi even more terrified because he narrowly escaped death. Jifan manages to dodge, but now he has drawn the boss's attention, and without hesitation, it charges at him. Once again, he dodges and tries to strike its head, constantly drawing the bandit's attention so that he can now run toward the shooter since he is an idiot. As he approaches, he tells his little friend not to run away because they are going to fight together, and once again, the boss destroys everything in its path, sending the sniper flying in every direction. After Jifan plays around for a while, he once again draws the opponent's attention and makes the boss attack the ground where the man is standing. He repeats this trick several times until the man becomes completely terrified by the situation. Once an opening appears, the MC lands a direct hit exactly as he had planned, and the shooter complains because he was completely tricked. Jifan makes it clear that if he never experiences the terror of facing the boss head-on, he will never learn to respect the sacrifices warriors make for the team. He then runs toward the rest of the group, whose members shout at him not to come any closer. The girl also activates a rare scroll that imprisons targets of level 3 or lower inside a cage with a diameter of 3 meters, lasting for 10 seconds. However, The cage captures the leader together with the boss, and he screams desperately for them to let him out. Unfortunately, that is impossible, and he can no longer see any way to survive against that colossal monster, so he is killed instantly. The MC watches the scene, since he only wanted to teach those people a lesson and never expected them to be so cruel that they would betray their own companion. In any case, the priority is dealing with the boss, and Nagasawa shouts, wanting to know whether he truly intends to confront the bandit, because even if they work together, defeating this dungeon is impossible. He does not care because he has already discovered a possible method, and he will only know whether it works if he tries. He is still under the monster's watch, and the cage has a duration of 5 seconds. He reflects that a level 3 boss is indeed powerful, and that, even after being hit by level 3 attacks, it remained practically unharmed. Moreover, the dungeon has already been explored by people from the Gray Zone administration, which means it is not an impossible level 3 dungeon. He then considers the only possibility. The time finally runs out, and the cage disappears. Jifan heads toward the boss, and an explosion occurs in the village. The dust begins to settle, and the MC appears with his sword piercing through the bandit. He pulls out the sword, and is congratulated for defeating the brigand boss. The monster begins to disappear, and he gains 20 experience points, advancing to level 2. He thinks this is great because he won the bet, and as expected, the boss had a special damage reduction mechanic, making it necessary to find its weak point in order to defeat it with a single strike. The system also congratulates him for clearing the level 3 fortress, and now he will receive the rewards. He becomes excited because the best part has arrived. At that moment, the girl approaches and says that he would not have defeated the boss without her help, so she also wants a share of the rewards. The assassin says the same thing, claiming that everyone helped during the battle. Jifan makes it clear that he has already been very generous by not holding a grudge over the bullets he received, and now they still want to extort the equipment he obtained by himself. Takamura tells them to forget it, since they would not have been able to defeat the monster anyway, and says that he is leaving, but the MC warns them that he never said they were allowed to leave. The two panic and ask what he wants, especially because the Grey Mist administration forbids professionals from killing one another without reason. He replies that they should all have died to the boss, and should therefore be grateful. Both of them thank him while sweating profusely from fear, and they immediately disappear from the dungeon. He returns to see what rewards he will receive, and is allowed to choose up to 3 items. He likes this because, apparently, since it is a high-level dungeon, he will receive an extra reward. The item options are 2 Class B skills and 1 Class A skill, 1 Class S skill, 3 Class SS skills, and finally, 3 more skills, consisting of 1 Class S skill and 2 Class A skills. He finds the number of high-level skill books incredible, especially since they have an extremely low drop rate, and concludes that his reward system is truly divine. His first choice is the rank SS skill, Drowsy Radiance. It allows him to train swordsmanship or blade arts while sleeping. His attack power also increases by 10% per level, and if his profession is warrior, this effect is tripled. His second choice is the skill Rapid Movement. He moves like the wind after mastering this skill. His speed increases by 10% per level, and if his profession is assassin, this effect is tripled. He is aware that he would receive the maximum bonus if he were an assassin, but even so, warriors can also make very good use of this skill. After all, being chased by the boss was much more dangerous, and having greater speed would be excellent. Finally, he also takes the quick loot meant for the ranged class. Since he can sell it and cover at least 1 million of his debt, he finds this reward system incredible because besides paying off his debt, it will open up other possibilities in the real world, and he vows to claim all the countless treasures hidden inside the dungeons. He sees an exceptional level of power, which means there is also a possibility of changing the world. Since his main goal is to pay off his debts as quickly as possible, he decides to look up the latest transaction prices. He starts by setting a low asking price and estimates that it could be sold for more than 1 million. However, he has barely listed it when he already receives an offer, making him realize that Class S long-range skill books are truly highly sought after. The initial offer is 1.2 million, and he immediately schedules a meeting for the following day. As he leaves, he decides that he will test the effects of the dream cultivation skill that night. Back at his apartment, he falls asleep, and at that moment, the skill takes effect, causing him to awaken somewhere else, although he cannot see anything. However, the physical sensations feel exactly the same as in the real world, and since there is nothing around him, his 5 senses become even sharper. At that moment, something approaches, and he is startled when he realizes that his opponent is himself. His clone launches an attack, and they both block with their swords. He counterattacks and finds the realism fascinating until he manages to split his opponent in half. Now he understands that becoming stronger means surpassing himself. Once again, another clone appears, and more of them begin emerging without stopping. He tells them all to attack together because he will eliminate them one by one. Meanwhile, at the City H Gray Zone Operations Management Headquarters, they analyze the locations of the recent incidents, and the deputy director explains that the management department's elites have been sent to disperse the gray mist. Regardless, he asks the veterans whether they have any countermeasures in case of an outbreak. Rose replies that they have made a major discovery because someone recently succeeded in preventing a sudden incident in the gray zone. It is not uncommon for unaffiliated professionals to occasionally help the department resolve incidents like this, so the deputy director asks what is so surprising about it. She explains that this time is different because they captured an arsonist and, through interrogation, discovered that the leader of the Eye of the End, the Prophet, had not foreseen this person in his oracle. In other words, this is the first time they have found a flaw in the Prophet's prophecies. Liu Chun wonders whether this person might be the key to breaking the Prophet's precognition and asks if they can find him. She explains that she has taken measures to search the residential areas along the route taken by the bus, and everyone hopes they will find him soon. The next day, Jifan wakes up and, once outside, thinks about how exhausting it is to fight hundreds of versions of himself throughout the night, even while cultivating in his dreams. He also wonders whether the training was effective at all. When he checks his mastered skills, he realizes that his basic sword technique is at level 3, while the other 2 skills he obtained in the dungeon are at level 1. He finds it incredible that in just one night, his sword technique advanced from level 2 to level 3, and even though he knows this means greater energy consumption, at least he can continue leveling up simply by sleeping. Sometime later, he arrives at the meeting point and wonders whether the burly man is the one who wants to buy the skill. The man stands up and asks whether he is the seller of the skill book. The MC takes the book out of his inventory but first asks for payment. The man makes the transfer and admits that he is surprised a level 2 warrior managed to drop a Class S skill book, calling it unbelievably lucky. The transfer comes through as 800,000, and the MC asks what this is, since they agreed on 1.2 million. Out of nowhere, the man draws his pistol and laughs, saying that he sees no reason why a mere warrior should be able to sell the book for such a high price, so he orders him to hand it over before he gets shot. In the next second, an explosion erupts in the alley, and the MC, gripping the lunatic by the neck, makes it clear that he does not like being called a mere warrior and asks whether he believes that, despite being level 2, he can defeat a level 4 without any trouble. The man tries to respond that he will never look down on warriors again. Jifan releases him and warns that he does not want to cause trouble by having the authorities come after him, so he orders the man to transfer the rest of the money immediately. Once everything is settled, he receives 1.4 million, including an extra 200,000 as compensation for all the trouble he went through. Since he is a man of principle, he hands over the skill book and returns the lunatic's weapon. The man sincerely thanks him, because with that book, he will be able to challenge the Cataclysm dungeon with a 12-person team. Jifan does not know what that is, although judging by the name, it sounds very profitable, and after putting away his new book, the man explains that it is an extremely popular dungeon on the professional forums. This dungeon is the most difficult one for new professionals below level 5. Players must survive for 3 days in a post-apocalyptic environment infested with zombies. Due to its high mortality rate, professionals call it the newbie hell. The MC finds it interesting and asks where the entrance to the dungeon is, since a high risk must also mean a high reward. The man explains where he can enter but asks whether he truly intends to test his luck, despite being only level 2, since the dungeon is level 5 and has a survival rate below 1%. He smiles and says that he will only know if he tries. Deep down, he becomes even more excited because if the risk is that high, then the rewards must be ultra rare. Sometime later, he arrives at the dungeon, and the professionals immediately look down on him for being a warrior who showed up to participate. The objective for clearing this dungeon is to survive for 3 days in a city undergoing a zombie disaster. The system also detects that a professional is challenging a dungeon far above his level and asks him to carefully consider whether he truly wishes to enter. The MC asks whether everyone is ready because he himself is dying to go inside. He enters the dungeon, and the system informs him that he has been separated from the team and must find everyone to prevent the zombie attack. The system equips him with excellent grade armor, and he chooses to hide his appearance. He is aware that, although he is only level 2, his attributes and equipment are far superior to those of the others, with no teammates around to get in his way. He also believes that he does not necessarily need to follow the system's instructions to the letter, since his main objective is still to obtain rewards, improve his strength, and pay off his debts. He spots a store and thinks it would be wise to stock up on some supplies as a precaution. Once inside, he finds some noodles, sports drinks, and hemostatic bandages. At that moment, Dayoung smashes through the glass and startles Jifan, since everything happens out of nowhere. The man is running from a horde of zombies, and when the gunner sees him, he shouts that he is safe now. MC equips his sword and finishes off the nearby monsters. He then tells Dayoung to be careful, because trouble will always find him, and orders him to provide cover since he has a powerful weapon for that. Then, using his advanced swordsmanship, he begins slicing through the zombies one by one with absurd mastery. He reflects that all the zombies that invaded have already been killed, yet more keep appearing every moment. He wonders whether the zombies are being drawn to the bodies of their dead companions. He also notices an irritating sound, and when he looks to the side, sees a zombie different from the others, emitting that noise from its body. Jifan knows it is an abnormal zombie that is probably attracting the others with that sound. Even though he can kill them all with ease, he could use his wind control to speed up his escape, but the hordes have blocked the only exit, and he first needs to deal with the loudspeaker zombie. Because of that, he tells the gunner to help hold back those troublemakers and, since he will no longer be attacking, to draw their attention instead. Dayoung says that is impossible because he is only a gunner and cannot do something like that. MC tells him to at least try, because he will never know unless he does, and asks for only 5 seconds. The gunner agrees, and MC, with 1 available point, increases his agility. He now has 11 points in strength, 11 in agility, and 10 in stamina. With his absurd speed, he moves through the store while the gunner sprays bullets at every zombie, blocking the path. Jifan continues moving across the ceiling until he reaches the loudspeaker zombie and tears it to pieces. He is pleased that it worked, but strangely, the zombies completely changed their behavior. Since he eliminated the commander, every zombie within a 15-meter radius enters a state of fury, and their attack speed and defense increase by 10 points. MC grows concerned when he realizes that the loudspeaker zombie was actually nothing more than bait, because now the zombies are attacking like mad. He lands a sword strike and realizes that their defense has clearly increased, and at this rate, he will not be able to deal with all of them. On the other hand, no new zombies are appearing, so he could simply run away. He is about to do so when he hears a noise and notices that the gunner is still cornered, trying to fulfill his part of the deal. MC finds himself frozen and reflects that, in this world, the law of the strongest prevails, and he does not need to put himself in danger for a stranger. Dayoung, defending himself however he can, shouts that MC is definitely the strongest professional he has ever seen and that he believes in his potential. However, the pressure on him keeps increasing. MC carefully observes the troublesome situation he has gotten himself into and says that, since he holds the title of the strongest, he cannot back down. He then takes a deep breath and, in the blink of an eye, cuts those zombies in half. Dayoung is happy that he managed to succeed, but MC grabs him by the shirt because he does not want any formalities and throws him toward the exit, making the man cry because he cannot understand why he was hurled like a baseball. Jifan complains that the man is too heavy and that he wasted energy making that throw. Still, at least now he can use his wind-controlling art and leap over the zombies without them even noticing. They finally leave the store, and MC tells them to bring on another challenge because that one was easy. They continue walking, and Dayoung admits that he knew the dungeon was high risk. but he never imagined it would be so terrifying. Suddenly, someone appears screaming, and a giant monster emerges, chasing him until it crushes him into the ground with a single punch. Jifan does not understand what kind of monster it is, and strangely, the mutant passes right beside them at absurd speed and leaves. They realize that they were not its target, but this raises a concern because they escaped by a hair. Other professionals appear, and a gunner introduces himself, saying that they were very lucky. He then explains that the ordinary zombies in that area are more docile than those in other places, and that the real danger is the mutant that just appeared. MC asks why it did not attack them. He replies that the zombie king hunts once at sunrise and once at sunset. If someone hides in an isolated room without any infected people during those 2 moments, they can usually avoid infection. However, if the king does not mark enough people that day, it may still attack at other times. In short, there are 2 deaths per day, with no escape. They go to a safe house where there are some items available for purchase in exchange for points, but everything has a limited stock. He finds it strange that water is the most expensive item and wonders whether drinking water is the scarcest resource in the dungeon. One man tells him not to touch the faucet and says that if he wants water, he must go to the other floors because the water in the rooms is filthy. Jifan says he understands and asks what the man is looking at, but notices that he is taking a while to react. Only then does he get startled when a black root appears in the sink, and he remembers that it had also appeared on the corpse moments earlier. He joins the others, and there is a point ranking and an exchange shop where points are earned by eliminating infected people. Each player has a certain number of points, and they discuss how they were injured the previous day, with some barely having enough points to pay for a boxed meal. MC asks whether he can take 10 bottles, since that would use up half the stock. But as a close combat warrior, he consumes a lot of water. The professionals ask whether he has gone mad for wasting so many points, and even mock him, saying that warriors are always the first to die in this kind of dungeon. Daiyong becomes furious at the provocation and makes it clear that Jifan is the strongest warrior he has ever seen. Shihao thinks this is perfect and says that MC will stand guard that night, since warriors are good at defense. Jifan asks whether they could not all simply hide in the room, because then no one would need to guard the door. The man says they already tried that, but no matter how slow the infected are, if they are not eliminated at night, they will continue gathering and eventually break down the door. Then, with a smile, he says that whether MC likes it or not, he will have to stand guard. He has no problem with that, but he wants to see how many of them will survive the night. Much later, the zombies begin gathering, and everyone who approaches is eliminated. The gunner appears and says that he is going to fetch water. Jifan finds that strange because they could simply exchange the points earned from killing zombies for it. The professionals laugh because he still believes the points are enough, not to mention that the zombie king attacks the person with the highest score. Daiyong tells him not to listen to them because they are clearly setting a trap. The blonde man laughs, saying there is no point in saying much because Jifan has already accumulated a large number of points. MC reflects that ordinary zombies are not strong, but no one is willing to waste points, and all the cleanup work has been pushed onto him. Clearly, they are looking for a scapegoat. Thinking about this, he warns that if they try to use him as bait, there will be serious consequences, and in the end, the result may not be what the guy wants. As the night progresses, he takes a nap, using the opportunity to improve his skills while he sleeps. Sometime later, a loud sound wakes everyone up, and the guy panics, wanting to know what that noise was. The leader does not understand why the Corpse King appeared when there are no infected people inside. Only then do they realize that Lu Yuan has been infected and is among them. Suddenly, something pounds against the ceiling until it destroys it, causing the zombie boss to appear before everyone. The professionals feel relieved since the MC was the one who eliminated most of the zombies, so he will surely die at that very moment. However, their joy does not last long, as the gunman's head goes flying and is devoured by the monster, proving that, in the end, it has nothing to do with points. He was already aware of this because when he first entered, he already had the highest score, and the Corpse King saw him but did not attack, instead finishing off the guy behind him first. On the other hand, he realizes that the Zombie King is actually targeting people who have black roots inside their bodies. He pulls out the root and says that the Corpse King never attacks the person with the highest score, as it targets people connected to the water fountain. He emphasizes once again that the Corpse King is targeting people associated with the water fountain. The professionals do not believe him or understand how he figured it out. The MC finds it incredible that they have not understood. At first, the players worked as hard as possible to earn points just to exchange them for a little more water. It was only when they ran out of enough points that they risked touching the water fountain. In the end, they did not even know how they had been chosen as targets. The MC is still not certain about this connection, but he decides to cut off the route just to be safe. The monster immediately charges forward and tries to attack him. The people start running like mad because the Corpse King has gone berserk. The MC says that he will lure it away and that everyone must stay away from the water fountain. The boss appears once again, and Jifan thinks it is great that he managed to lure the monster into a narrow corridor, because despite being powerful, the terrain will restrict its movements. The monster launches the first attack, but Jifan is faster and lands the first sword strike. However, the blow has little effect, forcing him to retreat. While the Zombie King continues attacking non-stop, he is forced to keep backing away and realizes that the monster possesses overwhelming strength and that a direct confrontation is not worth it. Because of this, he moves elsewhere and maintains a distance of half a step. The zombie tries to punch him, but he dodges, declares that this is a warrior's territory, and prepares to deliver the final blow. The Corpse King simply waits and blocks the sword strike with its hand. The MC is startled because the monster predicted his attack and, to make matters worse, begins emitting an intense power that forces Jaifan to retreat even further, as he senses that something bad is about to happen and needs to hide first. He finds it strange because the monster had been chasing him so closely and then suddenly acted as if it were blind. Despite not understanding the situation, he searches the room he entered until out of nowhere, the Corpse King appears and smashes through the wall. He does not understand what the hell is happening because he left the monster's field of vision and was still found. As soon as he says this, a zombie attacks from behind, but it is defeated with a single strike. Once again, the Corpse King becomes disoriented, looking in every direction. The MC begins to understand why the monster sometimes seems to have eyes and other times seems blind. Basically, the infected are acting as its eyes. If that is the case, he decides that he will eliminate all of the monster's eyes first. He begins killing everyone in front of him, limiting the Corpse King's vision. He feels more relieved because he has impaired the enemy's sight. The sun begins to rise, and suddenly, water starts overflowing from every faucet. This confuses Jifan until the professionals begin fleeing from several zombies, and the water flooding the area gives birth to new monsters. He finally understands that the zombies in the dungeon were not created from nothing. They are using the entire building's sewage system to continuously create zombies. It is no wonder the water is absurdly expensive. This has nothing to do with a lack of resources. The situation forces the players to touch the sewage and eventually turn into zombies. Because of this, he asks the two of them whether the electrical appliances in the building can still be used. They reply that they can, as the lights in the rooms are still on. He explains that he has discovered the key to solving the situation and will definitely send the Corpse King to its doom. He knows that there is electricity because the elevators are still working. He then runs, confident that he will find a way to clear the dungeon. First, the Corpse King depends on ordinary zombies to scout the terrain ahead, and if he can lure the boss into the elevator shaft, the result will be interesting to see. The blonde guy asks whether he is running away, since if he had not provoked the boss earlier, they would not be in danger. The MC tells him to stay away from the sewage if he wants to remain alive, and runs in that direction to lure the Zombie King. He rushes into the elevator, and the monster draws closer and closer with its tremendous speed. However, the door closes faster, and he activates the elevator to go up. He then makes a hole in the ceiling because it is now time to counterattack. As the elevator rises, the Zombie King destroys the door, and the MC thinks it is great that the stupid monster took the bait. He decides to hide in the gap between the elevator and the wall to play a little game of hide-and-seek. However, he knows that he needs to climb quickly, or the Corpse King will catch him. There are also two platforms, and he wonders which one would be better to hide on until he finally makes his decision, because one of the elevator cars is already damaged and about to collapse, supported by only 2 cables. If he can make the monster jump onto it, it will certainly lose its balance. He throws a rock to attract the attention of the sightless monster, and the Corpse King immediately leaps toward the sound. It reaches the platform, and the MC, without hesitation, cuts the elevator cable, causing the monster to lose its balance. Jifan takes advantage of the opportunity and leaps as well, landing a powerful strike directly on the monster's chest, causing it to roar wildly. However, before falling, it manages to grab onto one of the cables and prepares to counterattack. The MC, who was already expecting something like this, simply dodges and declares that this time it will not be able to escape. Then, with his most powerful slash, he finishes off the Corpse King by cutting its body in half. He feels relieved to have won, and the professionals appear, unable to believe that he truly defeated the boss alone. However, Jifan begins to find it strange because they always treated that monster as the boss, yet no notification appeared indicating that they had cleared the stage. A noise echoes from the top of the shaft, and they see countless zombies falling toward them. The MC is startled, and the blonde guy, already desperate, shouts, demanding to know what is happening, because those monsters had already died. The zombies continue trying to grab him, and the MC realizes that simply killing the Corpse King does not mean the game is over. He thinks about everything that has happened so far: the sewage water, the zombies appearing everywhere, and the Corpse King itself. After considering this, he concludes that the true cause of the zombie mutation lies at the source of the sewage. The MC tells the 2 of them to leave because he will go underground alone. Then, after walking for a long time, he arrives at a place completely covered in roots. As he expected, that place actually houses the true boss. And now he is certain that if he defeats it, he will complete the dungeon perfectly. He is confident that as long as he defeats this monster, he will finish the dungeon with a perfect completion. The true boss launches its first attack, and despite dodging it, Jifan realizes that the room is filling with zombies, and that, now trapped in a pincer attack, he needs to find an opening to get closer. He runs while dodging the tentacle attacking him and realizes that his escape space is shrinking. The tentacle manages to grab his foot and throws him toward the zombies. Jifan grows worried and starts cutting through everything to free himself. He knows that if this continues, he will be cornered sooner or later. Therefore, he needs to find a way to break through the barrier as quickly as possible. And only then does he notice something inside the room. It is a power distribution box, and his greatest surprise is that it still has electricity. Since this monster uses the sewers and roots as its own blood vessels, those vessels can also be used to kill it. With that in mind, he advances toward the distribution box while provoking the monster, and when he sees the roots heading toward him, he confirms that it has taken the bait. He blocks the attack and grabs the electrical wires at the same time, then, without hesitation, throws the fully electrified wire against the monster's roots, causing the boss to scream in agony, while even the zombies are electrocuted. As a result, the boss's core is exposed, and the MC decides that it is time to finish the job. He charges forward and cuts what remains of the boss in half. The destruction of the monster can be felt even outside the building, and with that finishing blow, it disappears completely. The system congratulates him for completing the Cataclysm dungeon and informs him that the rewards are being calculated. 1 epic chest and 2 rare chests appear in front of him, and the MC asks the 2 survivors to choose first. Daiyong becomes fascinated by the incredible chest that dropped, while Jifan only thinks that he cannot reveal to anyone his secret ability to choose rewards through the system. A notification warns that they will be sent outside after collecting their rewards, and the blonde boy runs toward the epic chest, but he soon senses murderous intent directed at him. The boy immediately switches chests and decides that the lower quality ones are more suitable for the situation. The MC says that since the 2 of them are so polite, he will take the epic chest. He can choose up to 3 rewards. In addition, he is informed that he is the first player to perfectly complete the level 5 Cataclysm dungeon, so the special rewards will be recalculated. He may also choose to exchange the normal rewards for hidden rewards, and the chest displays every available option. He obtains the Sacred Judgment musket and still has two choices remaining. The other two pieces of equipment are the Wind Scar Star Horn and the Mithril Star Staff. The system asks whether he wants to make the exchange, and he selects yes. In any case, a warrior would not use all three items, and the musket will probably be enough to pay off his debt. Although the other pieces of equipment are valuable, he wants to see the hidden rewards. He thinks about the Corpse King, who can see through ordinary zombies, and the Mother Plant, which can control others, and believes it would be great to obtain those two abilities. As he thinks about it, a notification informs him that he has acquired new abilities. The abilities in question are the Corpse King's Shared Vision and the Mother Plant's Consciousness Control. The MC begins thinking about this because, logically, mission rewards should have been fixed from the beginning, including the hidden rewards. However, at that moment, it is as though the system heard what he said and transferred the corresponding abilities to him, even displaying them on the screen. He also feels as if something is watching him from behind. He looks specifically toward the generator cabin and notices a strange symbol. This leads him to conclude that creatures from the gray zone generally exist only on the surface and do not enter dungeons, meaning that the Mother Plant was definitely placed there on purpose. He connects the pieces with the fact that he obtained those abilities and considers that the gray zone itself may also have been artificially created. Now that he has found this clue, he is confident that he will uncover the truth behind it. By perfectly completing the dungeon, he obtained the legendary grade musket, 2 abilities, and enough experience to reach level 4. He opens his status window and likes what he sees, as his basic sword technique is now level 4, and his previous abilities have evolved to level 2. He takes out his phone to check the market prices, and notices that the legendary dungeon weapon he listed for auction has already received several bids, reaching 3 million, making it even rarer than he imagined. The highest bid has currently reached 3.6 million, and the buyer requests an in-person transaction. He accepts the request because he has now reached level 4 and possesses 1 legendary piece of equipment and 2 new abilities, although this is still not enough to earn money and pay off all his debts. Soon afterward, he goes to the professional trading center and, upon entering, exchanges his equipment for money. This time, he receives the money properly and now has 5 million. The buyer comments that he heard Jifan is a low-level warrior who has once again sold a high-value item and that apparently he has figured out who he is. The MC asks whether he is there to buy something or merely to probe into other people's affairs. The man warns him that this merchandise should never have fallen into his hands in the first place, and Jifan tells him to mind his own business instead of interfering in other people's lives. After saying that, he leaves. Once he pays off his debt, only 200 remains, and he becomes upset because he will have to live on a tight budget for some time. But at least the debt has finally been paid. He notices several people following him and had already expected something like this because the mustached man looked like he would send someone after him. The guards keep their eyes on him the entire time, but after he enters an alley, they simply lose sight of their target. The MC, standing on top of a building, watches the two fools and concludes that a low-level warrior who constantly obtains top-tier equipment to sell will definitely attract a great deal of attention. When he turns around, he notices an advertisement from the Gray Zone Administration Bureau, the organization responsible for handling incidents in the Gray Zone, stating that they are recruiting professionals for paid work. He considers this the perfect opportunity because with the status of a third-party contractor for the administration, no one will care about the origin of his equipment. With that in mind, he heads to the Gray Zone Administration Hall and tells the receptionist that he wants to know the procedure for accepting highly paid outsourced jobs. She asks him to provide his information and notices that he is a level 4 warrior. The people around him begin laughing because a madman of such a low level dares to accept paid missions. And if the requirements were truly that low, there would be no shortage of service providers. However, the deputy director appears and orders everyone to be quiet because he wants to know what all the commotion is about. The receptionist explains that the level 4 warrior wants to take on an outsourced job. Liao Chun says that he will not even waste his time on this because the Gray Zone has been stable recently and they are not short on personnel. The MC finds this amusing because Liao Chun is speaking too soon and points out that an outbreak will certainly occur near the plaza that very same day. The deputy director asks whether he understands the gravity of what he is saying, and the MC, aware that he will not want to believe him, simply says goodbye and tells him that when the alarm goes off, he can call him to ask questions, but the price will no longer be the same. Liao Chun does not understand all this mystery. The MC goes to the square, thinking that after discovering that gray zones could be artificially created, he re-examined all the recent incidents. Small zones are more likely to appear in busy public places. Large-scale instances tend to emerge near previously discovered gray zones. And the sequence of recent events shows a concentration of areas around the square moving toward the center. So, he sits down, confident that it is almost time for this event to happen. At that moment, several alarms begin to sound, announcing that a new gray zone has appeared near the square and that they are in a state of emergency. The deputy director finds it absurd that this is happening, and the MC, pleased that his guess was correct, believes that some people will desperately want him to return and take on the outsourced missions. The fog begins to destroy the area, and everyone starts running away, screaming for help, as a completely bizarre monster appears and attacks. One of them is captured, and the roots completely restrain his body. At the same moment, the police arrive, and Chue says that they must prioritize rescuing the civilians. The police prepare themselves and open fire on the monster, and while it is distracted blocking the bullets, one of the professional officer advances from behind to reach the hostage. However, he realizes that it is already too late, as those roots have completely taken over the man's body. He reports that the hostage was probably killed, although he is not certain, and she makes it clear that they cannot get close to those roots, and that only long-range attacks work. The officer warns that they are running out of ammunition, and Chue reports to her superior that the blood vines in the square can only be attacked from a distance, and that their current firepower is insufficient. He thinks about what they could do and replies that they must hold the monster back, and if the MC appears, they must keep him in the square at all costs, as he wants to speak with him personally. She has barely heard this when a flash of light passes beside her. It is Jifan, cutting through all the vines in front of him. The officers express their surprise, as their special bullets could barely scratch the vine's bark, yet that sword cut through it with a single strike. She approaches the MC, asks who he is, and says that this is dangerous, and that he will interfere with the Gray Zone department. He asks whether she can hold out until the main reinforcements arrive, and, even while being attacked by the vine, manages to cut through every strike, as he says that he is the only person present capable of handling that gray fog instance. She does not understand what kind of nonsense he is talking about, and he makes it clear that his help comes with a condition, as this rescue mission will cost 1 million. In addition, they must later include him on the official list of external professionals according to the highest payment rate. Over the radio, the deputy director warns that the monster is at least level 8 and that rescuing the people would require at least 1 full team. Therefore, he wants to know whether the MC will bear the consequences if he fails. He notices that he is finally speaking with a superior, but realizes that they still do not trust his word. Even so, he says that it is fine, because if he fails, he can pay with his life. On the other hand, if he succeeds, he will not want only money, as he will have to be respectfully invited to join the bureau. The deputy director finds this absurd, but at that moment, a little girl is captured by the vine, and the MC sees her being taken away. He reflects that he sensed something was wrong before, as the monster should not have reacted merely upon seeing people. It was more as though someone had entered its detection range. This is because he tested it and became certain that something was moving underground. Therefore, the first time he acted, he used the art of wind control and tried to move as delicately as possible. He goes to rescue her anyway and uses his shared vision. As expected, there are monsters moving underground. The withered blood vines detect approaching enemies not through sight, but through the vibrations felt by their roots. He rushes forward to cut them first, and, once he is close enough, strikes in every possible direction, saving the little girl. Then, he moves on to the next step and rescues all the other captured hostages, while also completely killing the monster. Frightened, the little girl runs to her mother, and the officer asks whether the MC is really a soldier, as he made it look far too easy. Meanwhile, the deputy director remains silent, as he has just watched everything that happened in the square, and Jifan says that it is time for the administration to fulfill its part of the agreement. He emphasizes once again that it is time for them to keep their promise, and Chue gives permission to the officer, who approaches the MC and hands him a card containing 1 million. The administration also adds him to the official list of external professionals with the highest payment rate. He feels better, as he will now be able to explore dungeons more easily. Then he says that he will leave, and that if they need anything, they only have to call. But the girl asks him to wait and questions how he knew about the crisis in advance. Since gray zones appear without any pattern, he reveals that the gray zone was artificially created and that the administration has probably already begun to suspect this as well. After all, someone is organizing their appearances. Therefore, it is not random, and he tells them to connect the events of the past to determine the next location. This time, he leaves for good. Meanwhile, at the Eye of Terminus, Senior Executive Lamplighter is gathered with the others. He points out that the incident involving the withered blood vine should have caused greater panic, but someone quickly suppressed it. Because of this, he concludes that a variable has infiltrated their plans. He opens his panel and explains that only 3 individuals were considered connected to the vine incident and met the criteria. Therefore, to identify the true variable, the safest method is to force those 3 to enter the same dungeon, but it would be difficult to make them work together without a reason. With that said, he concludes by revealing that the trap has already been prepared. Sometime later, the MC finishes another job. Shortly after leaving, he notices that the administration's communication ring is ringing. It is Chue, saying that a medium-sized gray zone has appeared near the 6th elementary school and that he must hurry. He says that it is fine and heads to the location. Along the way, he thinks about the small monsters from the gray zones, as they constantly launch surprise attacks but are easy to deal with. The more troublesome ones are the medium-sized zones, and if the rewards are high, they will directly affect the surrounding area. After arriving at the designated location, the girl introduces Yao as the person responsible for the support and treatment department. The man says that he has heard a great deal about Jifan, as he is a powerful warrior who resolved the blood vine incident. Chue tells them to stop wasting time with idle chatter, as the situation is complicated and ordinary team members would only be a burden. Therefore, only the 3 elite members were recruited. They stand before the dense fog, which is even spreading throughout the entire block. At that moment, someone emerges from within the fog. Jifan knows that they are members of the Interceptors Guild. They often send people into dungeons to obtain equipment. The captain orders the man to leave, as he does not have permission. The man explains that medium-sized zones are the ones most likely to provide fixed item drops and that, naturally, he wants to claim them first. She tells him not to act so carelessly, as this could spread throughout the entire city. The arrogant guy does not want to hear the administration's nonsense and says that all those people are useless. The girl begins to grow furious until Jifan grabs her arm and asks her to calm down, since they can first see what the guy is capable of. After all, if he manages to deal with the monsters, he will simply save the administration's strength. However, if things go wrong, the bonus and fame will all belong to them, since the guy will be dead. This infuriates the madman, as they are dragging the Interceptors Guild's name through the mud, and the MC simply points out that if he is truly capable, then he will not stop him. The guy gives his first demonstration and begins killing the giant monsters. At first, he thought it would be difficult, but he realizes that they are nothing special. He even takes the opportunity to show off, since, in his mind, the guild is stronger than the administration. However, he finds it strange that no equipment is dropping, and also notices that the gray zone has disappeared. To make matters worse, a thick black mist revives the monster, which quickly escapes through an alley. The guy simply cannot believe this could happen, since his guild dominated the battle. Jifan approaches him and tells the trash to step aside, because they have only wasted everyone's time, and now he will show him how to eliminate a real monster. The monster, accompanied by the mist, begins moving through the city, jumping from building to building, until it spots a little boy in the street and heads toward him to devour him. However, Jifan arrives in time, saves the boy, and tells him to get away quickly because the area is dangerous. Without wasting any time, the child thanks him and runs into the crowd. The MC blocks the monster's first attack and then rushes closer as he is trying to strike different parts of the creature's body. However, amid this, he notices something strange because he struck both the shell and the abdomen, and even the front legs seem exactly the same. Strangely, the monster is not agile in its movements. Its shell is not indestructible, and it does not avoid having its vital points struck during combat. His first suspicion is that this monster is not truly a living being. The creature attacks again, and he blocks it with his sword before unleashing a powerful attack that sends it flying. He finds the situation troublesome, but his primary mission is to evacuate the civilians first. Therefore, he orders his team to clear the crowd, and they begin coordinating everyone, prioritizing the injured so they can receive treatment first. The Interceptors Guild takes advantage of the administration being busy and sees this as their chance to deliver the final blow to the monster. Chue realizes that they are insane, since the students have not even been evacuated yet. But the guy does not care about saving people, because whoever lands the fatal blow will receive the reward. Therefore, he attacks with all his strength, while the monster lies defenseless on the ground. After doing so, he celebrates, believing the reward now belongs to them. However, once again, the creature releases a strange mist, this time green, frightening the group because the monster's head was crushed, yet it is still coming back to life. Jifan approaches and says that the guy has once again been deceived by the monster and apparently never learns from his mistakes. The creature releases a gray vine that advances across the ground toward him, but Jifan simply raises his sword and drives it into the ground. He then deflects every attack coming his way. Soon afterward, the group notices that the monster has simply disappeared, and the MC concludes that the beetle is not actually real. It is a body composed of countless tiny beetles. Rather than an insect hiding inside a shell, it is more as though these insects formed the shell themselves. As soon as the shell breaks, they scatter and flee. When they find something weaker, they regroup and form a new giant beetle. Since he needs to know where these creatures are going, he uses his shared vision. This power connects him to the animals in the area, allowing him to discover where the smaller creature is, since it is clearly the commander insect leading the swarm. With that in mind, he approaches the madman and slashes the beetle, with the strike passing through the guy's hair and leaving him terrified because he is now nearly bald. However, the attack eliminates the leader, and the swarm begins losing control. The MC warns that none of them will escape alive. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.